In today's video, we're going to be trying to predict who is going to dethrone every single current active champion in the WWE. So we're going to be looking at the main roster champions as well as the champions down in NXT. Here's the thing. I typically only do this video once a month, and I usually do it at the start of a month after a major WWE Premium Live event. Hence why I'm doing this pretty much immediately after Survivor Series War Games 2024. However, December is kind of a funky month because we also have NXT Deadline and Saturday night's main event still yet to come. So it's possible that I might actually have to do this video a second time if there's a lot of movement amongst the championships after those two events. We'll see, that's not guaranteed. But in today's video, I'm gonna go over every single champion. I'm gonna tell you who I think is going to dethrone them, and I'm gonna try and explain to you why I think they're gonna be dethroned by that specific person. And as always, don't forget to subscribe to this YouTube channel, ring the bell for notifications. If you're a wrestling fan, I'm confident that you're gonna fall in love with this YouTube channel because we always upload daily wrestling content. You guys also need to stop sending me memes of me being kidnapped by the cartel. I'm fine. I'm still in Colombia, still on vacation, but everything is all right. By the way, if you do want even more daily wrestling content, check out the Patreon, patreon.com/SantiZap. The link will be in the description. The link is in the pinned comment. Let's jump into the video. Let's start things off by talking about the WWE Women's Tag Team Championships. In the last video, the championships were being held by the team of Bianca Belair and Jade Cargill, and they are still your WWE Women's Tag Team Champions, and that really isn't a surprise considering they haven't defended the tag titles since the last time that I made this video, which was right after Crown Jewel when they did defend the titles in that fatal four-way. In the month of November, they spent the majority of the time building towards Survivor Series War Games, and Jade Cargill has been taken out of TV for the last couple of weeks. So it's not really a surprise that they're still tag team champions. In the last video, I predicted that they would eventually lose the titles to a team of Liv Morgan and Raquel Rodriguez. I no longer think that this is going to be the case. I originally made this prediction when I thought that Rhea Ripley was going to be out for several months because of that injury looked pretty bad. However, she was only out for like a couple of weeks, and now that Rhea Ripley is back into the equation, we're probably just going to go back to that Rhea Ripley and Liv Morgan and Raquel Rodriguez storyline, thus taking these two out of tag team contention, at least I think. I feel like one of the strong possibilities is that they just never lose the tag titles appropriately. Instead, they're forced to relinquish the titles because of this Jade Cargill injury. I wouldn't be surprised if after a couple of weeks of inactivity, Nick Aldis forces Bianca Belair and Jade Cargill to relinquish the titles, which could kind of create some friction between Jade Cargill and Bianca Belair, thus maybe eventually setting us up for that WrestleMania match that we're all expecting. A more traditional way to lose the titles could be to a team consisting of any of these three: Nia Jax, Candice LeRae, and Tiffany Stratton. If I'm a betting man, I would probably say Tiffany Stratton and Candice LeRae because I feel like there's some negative energy between those two, some hatred between those two that could actually create a pretty interesting tag team. So this is what I'm going to go with. But again, I just want you to keep in the back of your mind the possibility of those titles just being forcefully vacated. The goddamn bane of my existence are the WWE World Tag Team Championships. These titles are currently being held hostage by the team of Finn Balor and JD McDonough, who rarely defend these titles. They did have a title defense a couple of weeks ago against the War Raiders, but it really fell flat. These guys are terrible tag team champions. Let's just call a spade a spade. Look, I still think that they're going to lose these tag titles to the War Raiders. The match that they had where they defended against the War Raiders didn't end clean, and it's pretty clear that Adam Pearce still has plans to do War Raiders versus the Judgment Day again. So we're probably going to run this back. Damian Priest is probably going to get involved, and the War Raiders are going to win your tag team titles, which is a good thing for like literally everybody. We just need these titles off of Finn Balor and JD McDonough for the love of God. The WWE Tag Team Championships from Friday Night Smackdown. These are currently being held by the Motor City Machine Guns. They were the champions in the last video, and they are still your WWE Tag Team Champions. In the last video, I predicted that we would get a more brutal heel version of the Street Profits. So I predicted that eventually they would be the #1 nemesis to the Motor City Machine Guns. However, that hasn't really panned out. That hasn't really been the case, but they did have a championship match that was interrupted by Tommaso Ciampa of DIY. So the Street Profits are still very much in the conversation. However, they're no longer my pick. I'm now going towards DIY because I feel like this split up storyline that's going on with Tommaso Ciampa turning heel and Johnny Gargano being good friends with the Motor City Machine Guns is eventually going to lead to both of these guys being heel and giving us a full-fledged heel version of DIY who will take out the Motor City Machine Guns and win the titles off of them. That's what I'm going with. Now we have the NXT Tag Tag Team Championships. Last video, and as of the making of this video, the NXT Tag Team Champions are what I now consider to be the greatest NXT Tag Team Champions of all time, Axiom and Nathan Frazier. The cracks are there. I mean, it's not even a crack at this point. It's a full-blown chasm. There's a problem in this tag team, and we're seeing it in the build-up to Deadline as they're both now trying to accomplish singles glory. And that chasm is getting even bigger with Nathan Frazier qualifying and Axiom not qualifying. In the last video, I, funnily enough, predicted that it would be a combination of members of the No Quarter Catch crew, and as it happens, they just did an over-the-top rope battle royal on NXT to determine the #1 contenders, and wouldn't you have it, these guys won. So these guys are your #1 contender, and I think that because of the current chasm between Axiom and Nathan Frazier, that these guys are going to be your NXT Tag Team Champions soon. So I'm sticking with this prediction here. I'm actually really proud of this prediction. If this one pans out, this one was a hole-in-one. Next up, we have the NXT Women's North American Championship. In the last video, the champion was Fallon Henley, and she is still your NXT Women's North American Champion, and she has held down this championship, defeating Kalani Jordan, and thus completely more or less removing Kalani Jordan from being your next NXT Women's North American Champion. In the last video, I predicted that it would be Zarya. I'm still predicting that it's going to be Zarya. Now, Zarya and Fallon Henley aren't really mixing with each other, one another, because Zarya is going to be part of the NXT Deadline match and Fallon Henley is not. But I'm sure that after NXT Deadline that we're probably going to go back to this direction, because Zarya did kind of call her shot during her debuting against the newly crowned Fallon Henley. So I still think that it's going to be Zarya, so I'm not moving on from this prediction. Here's something new that we didn't have last video, a Women's United States Championship. We now have a tournament that's fully fledged going on. We know all of the participants. I'm going to keep this nice and quick. I'm going to say that your inaugural United States Women's Champion is going to be Chelsea Green. It's possible that it could be Michin, or hell, it could even be Tiffany Stratton, with her running around with both a mid-card championship and a women's briefcase as well. However, I am going to go on with the betting favorite here. I'm taking Chelsea Green. I think at the very least she goes all the way through to the final, and this is one of the reasons why we might have to do this video again in a couple of weeks after Saturday night's main event, but I'm going to go with Chelsea Green. Another one that's brand new is the Women's Intercontinental Championship. We also know who's in the tournament, and the tournament has already started, albeit it's still in its much earlier stages compared to its Smackdown counterpart. I'm going to go with Dakota Kai. She's the other betting favorite that people have, and she's my favorite in this tournament, so I'm going to go with her. If you want other options, I feel like Lyra Valkyrie is a good one, and call me crazy, Natalia's not terrible either, as much as people would fucking burn the internet if that were to happen. Now we have the NXT North American Championship. In the last video, the champion was Tony D'Angelo, and he is still your NXT North American Champion, and he already had a championship defense. In the last video, I predicted that he was going to lose the championship to one of these two guys, Jensen Brooks or Shawn Spears. Funnily enough, he had matches against both of these guys in the last month, and he defeated both of them and is still your North American champion. And now I can't really see this being in the picture anymore. I think we have to go in a completely different direction. And I need you to stick with me here, because I'm going to go into a bit of crazy fantasy booking situation here. Even though there is no connection whatsoever between the two, I think it would be pretty gnarly if it was Axiom. Because right now, the big storyline between Nathan Frazier and Axiom is that Nathan Frazier really wants to win singles gold. And Nathan Frazier qualified to potentially win singles gold for NXT Deadline. Meanwhile, Axiom did not. So I think it'd be a pretty interesting storyline if come NXT Deadline, Nathan Frazier loses, and off the back, a couple of weeks after Deadline, what if Axiom wins singles gold? Something that he wasn't really striving to do, and Nathan Frazier was, and he actually accomplishes it before Nathan Frazier, thus creating even more friction between this team that already has a tremendous amount of friction. So I'm going to get a little bit funky with it. I'll just say Axiom, because there really isn't anything for Tony D'Angelo on the table at the moment. And I also don't think that Obafemi, when he comes back, is going to be gunning after the mid-card title again. I think think he's going right after Trick Williams. Now let's look at the men's United States Championship. We have to start calling it that now because we have a women's United States Championship now. This is crazy. In the last video, the champion was LA Knight, and I predicted that he was eventually, like down the line, like I'm talking several months, that he would lose this championship to Carmelo Hayes, and I couldn't be more wrong, ladies and gentlemen, because your new United States champion is Shinsuke freaking Nakamura, who in the last video wasn't even on WWE TV. He was on no one's radar. Since coming back, he has won the United States Championship, has an entirely new presentation, a new gimmick, and just a brand new unstoppable aura about him. There's not a single soul that would have predicted this to happen coming off of Crown Jewel. No way whatsoever. But here we are. Shinsuke Nakamura is your United States champion. What a wild timeline that we live in. So I have to get fancy with it. I don't think that it's going to be LA Knight, because I think that LA Knight's going to go over to Monday Night Raw come Netflix. So let me throw this one out for you. What if it's AJ Styles? I know that AJ Styles is currently out with injury, and we don't fully know how long the injury is going to be, but I know that it's going to be a handful of months. What if Shinsuke Nakamura actually has a long, healthy, fruitful run with this championship, and it lasts as long as it takes for AJ Styles to come back from this injury? That gives us another chance to do Shinsuke Nakamura versus AJ Styles and do it right this time under the Triple H regime. I mean, when AJ Styles came back, like right before his injury, when AJ Styles came back, he was like immediately inserted into that crowd of people that were in the United States Championship picture. Maybe they just do the same thing when he comes back from this injury, and Shinsuke could very well still be the champion. So I'll get fancy with it. I'll go AJ friggin' Styles.
Sammy, run from the taser, Sammy.
Oh my God. Oh, dude, look at this. Good God.
Before, what a debut. What a debut.
That was a sneak peek of this week's Wrestling is Cool Match Club, available exclusively on patreon.com/SantiZap. This week, we're looking at the ridiculous WrestleMania 38 match between Sami Zayn and Johnny Knoxville in an anything goes match. We're looking at a wild intergender match between Penta El Zero Miedo versus Io Sky in Lucha Underground. We're looking at the short but awesome match between Brock Lesnar and Samoa Joe at Great Balls of Fire. What a dumb name for a show. We're also going to be watching the Big Boom AJ Costco guys match that he just had at AEW Full Gear's pre-show. And we're looking back at the debut of the Shield during the triple threat match at Survivor Series between John Cena, Ryback, and CM Punk. You're going to be getting these watch-alongs and more, like our Raw reviews, Smackdown reviews, the Wrestling is Cool podcast 3 days early, the currently ongoing Royal Rumble watch-alongs that we're doing, and the Undertaker WrestleMania match watch-alongs as well. Again, all of this is available exclusively on patreon.com. I'll put the link in the description, the link in the pinned comment. Come give it a try even for just 1 month, because I'm confident that you're going to fall in love with it. This is all content that just never gets uploaded to YouTube because we just simply can't. If you're already a patron, thank you so much for your support. It's the reason why I'm able to do this as much as I do. Thank you very much, and back to the video. The Intercontinental Championship. Let's talk about that next. The Intercontinental Championship is currently being held on lock by Braun Breaker, who just defended his championship against both Sheamus and Ludwig Kaiser in one of the best matches of the night at Survivor Series War Game. In the last video, I predicted that he might lose the championship eventually down the line to none other than Dirty Dominic Mysterio. I still see big things for Dirty Dominic Mysterio. However, I don't see this happening anytime soon. I feel like if Dom were to win a major singles title, that it's going to be deep into next year. So I'm going to keep this simple. I think that it's going to be Sheamus, that Sheamus likely at WrestleMania or at a major show, maybe at an upcoming Saturday night's main event. We have one right before the Royal Rumble, maybe at the Royal Rumble. I don't know. It could happen in so many different places because we have so many major shows between now and WrestleMania. But at some point or another, they're going to need to pull the trigger on Sheamus becoming a Grand Slam champion. So I'm going to say that your next Intercontinental champion is Sheamus. The NXT Women's Championship. Let's talk about that. I'm going to be super quick here. In the last video, the champion was Roxanne Perez, and Roxanne Perez is still your champion. And last video, I said that Stephanie Vaquer would eventually eventually dethrone Roxanne Perez, and I'm sticking to that. I think that the next major championship defense for Roxanne Perez is going to be Stephanie Vaquer. Stephanie Vaquer is going to win, and she's going to carry that championship to NXT Stand and Deliver to have that women's dream match that so many people want between her and Julia. Hell, I wouldn't be surprised if maybe they do a triple threat. Vaquer, Julia versus Roxanne Perez. Staying with the women, let's talk about the Women's World Championship, and I'm going to get funky with this one. The current champion, as you know, is Liv Morgan, and in the last bunch of videos, I've said that she's just going to eventually lose this title to Rhea Ripley, and the WWE just continues to delay this time after time after time, and I'm just getting bored now. So I'm going to go into a different realm now. I'm going to say that Io Sky wins the World Championship at Saturday night's main event. Yep. I know that it seems like an impossibility because it just seems like an inevitability that it's going to be Rhea Ripley versus Liv Morgan for that world title. However, that feud just doesn't need the world title anymore. What if Rhea Ripley costs Liv Morgan the match against Io Sky at Saturday night's main event? That allows us to continue the Liv Morgan Rhea Ripley storyline while allowing that title to flourish in the women's division under a new regime of Io Sky. So this is mostly a want, but I'm going with it. Io Sky, baby. The WWE Women's Championship. Let's talk about that now. The championship in the last video was being held by Nia Jax. She's still your champion, and she did defend the championship against Naomi a couple of weeks ago. In the last video, I predicted that she would eventually get cashed in on by Tiffany Stratton. However, it turns out that Triple H doesn't really know how to book good Money in the Bank briefcase holders. He just makes them look like colossal idiots. So I don't see this happening anytime soon. I don't think that it's going to be Tiffany Stratton anymore. Instead, I think that it could very well be Bianca Belair. Bianca Belair and Nia Jax have sort of just been gravitationally pulled to one another over the last several months, and I feel like it's eventually going to come to a head, especially now that Jade Cargill is out. With Jade Cargill being out, it now kind of forces Bianca Belair to re-enter the singles ecosystem. And what if Bianca Belair wins the women's championship while Jade Cargill is gone, and when Jade Cargill comes back, she turns heel and attacks a newly crowned champion, Bianca Belair, thus vacating those tag titles and creating our next feud towards WrestleMania. Just a little bit of a potential fantasy option there. The WWE Speed Championship. The champion is Dragon Lee. I don't give a fuck about this. Let's move on. The NXT Championship. I'm not changing my opinion here. In the last video, the champion was Trick Williams. Trick Williams is still your NXT champion. He does have a feud for the NXT championship against Ridge Holland, but I don't see him dropping the championship to Ridge Holland. I feel like this is just to give Trick Williams more wins as we build to something major for him. And that something major comes in the name of Oba freaking Femi. I do believe that when Oba Femi returns to NXT, he's not going to go right back to the North American title picture. I don't think that he's going to just sort of hang out in limbo. I feel like he is the next big face of NXT. He is one of the next big stars of the WWE in general, and a big money match likely for NXT Stand and Deliver would be Oba Femi versus Trick Williams. So I'm staying steady here. I'm gonna say it's Oba Femi down the line. Now we have the World Heavyweight Championship. Now the champion is currently Gunther, who has recently defended the championship against Street Trash Damian Priest. Now this isn't the Gunther that we know and love. This is not the ring general. This is the ring bitch. He's currently going through some sort of career midlife crisis where he just doesn't think that he's good enough to be in the position that he's in. He does have a scheduled World Heavyweight Championship match against Finn Balor at Saturday night's main event. However, I feel like that's just to continue to build Finn Balor versus Damian Priest down the line. I fully expect Damian Priest to get involved in this match and help Gunther retain, thus continuing to build Damian Priest versus Finn Balor, thus continuing to build up the, I guess, the negative aura that Gunther now has that he can't win championship matches on his own. Last video, I suggested John Cena at WrestleMania. I'm sticking with that. I think that John Cena, I don't think that he wins the Royal Rumble, but I do believe that he wins, say, the Elimination Chamber to become the #1 contender for this championship. Plus Cena and Gunther, dude, like they're just made for each other. Like Gunther is the quintessential Cena heel, and Cena is like everything that Gunther hates about professional wrestling. Like, please put them together. And I think that this is where Cena wins his 17th. And the WWE Undisputed Championship has not changed. The champion in the last video was was Cody Rhodes, and he is defending the championship against Kevin Owens at Saturday night's main event. I also don't think that the championship is in any danger. However, it'd be pretty wild if Kevin Owens somehow walked out with the WWE championship. But I don't think that it's going to happen. And here's the thing. I've been making this prediction since I started making these videos after WrestleMania every month, and I don't think that I'm going to be changing my opinion. Although I got to be honest with you, I'm less certain about this now that there are rumors that he might not be available for WrestleMania. And I'm talking, of course, about the final boss. It's going to be Bloodline Rules The Rock. I'm going to stick with this, but I'm not as certain as I was in previous months of this. All right, folks, thank you so much for watching this month's edition of Who's Going to Dethrone Every Champion. Like I said, it's possible that this might be one of those weird months where we end up having to do two. We'll see how NXT Deadline goes and how Saturday night's main event goes, if it even warrants making a second one. We'll see. But that's it. I'm done. Get out of here.